Hello, everyone, and welcome to the new episode of Entrepreneurship Lab. This is your host, Nevena Bajalac, welcoming you once again to the podcast where we help you grow and scale your business. As always, we bring you incredible guests to you, entrepreneurs with real stories, with real success, and also, of course, followed by some mistakes, failures, listening to real experience that can help you change your mindset, get new ideas, and grow and scale. And today we have two founders with us. Their name are Arjun and Tito, and they are co-founders of Teambridge. And this company aims to make shift work for roles like nurses, factory workers, events staff, and so on. And they're going to today have a discussion with us how this idea came along, how did they grow their business, and yes, why exactly this, and how you can also use some of their experience in your industry as well. So, guys, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Nevena. Nice for having us.
Yep, thank you.
I'm very excited. So, you guys are based in San Francisco. Can you first tell me how did you get to know each other? Before we dig in, is there any interesting, fun story about you guys? What is your background? And yeah, how did you
Sure.
meet and how the
Yeah.
Team Bridge came along?
Yeah, I can start and Arjun can maybe add on. We actually met at my interview for Uber. So prior to founding Teambridge, we were at Uber, and Arjun walks into the interview panel that I had as a product designer coming into Uber, and he said, "I like you. I want to work with you." And I think from then on out, we became kind of the SWAT team, solving some of the largest, most sticky problems that Uber had. I'm having great success, and I think we realized very early on that we had something unique as a pair, and we wanted to start something together because of that success. And then the Teambridge story really comes out of the fact that we had interviewed drivers and blue collar workers, shift workers all over the world to understand this new gig economy craze. And we realized that 80% of the world is hourly, and they have some of the worst tools out there. They have some of the most antiquated tech. And so we said, how do we go and give those companies tech that's better than the white collar, better than the desk workers, better than the knowledge workers, because they need it more?
Yeah, I think the only thing I'll add, maybe, at the expense of being a little facetious, is when, there are two partners in your life that you need to be very sure about. One is, your spouse, who ends up becoming your spouse. And, I married the girl I dated in ninth grade, right? So I realized she was the one. And then the second person I realized, was the one right away was my co-founder, Tito. He's absolutely right. When we were the first time we met, I was interviewing Tito. I was like, there was some energy, there was some complementary, skill sets that we had. There was like this natural connection that we had. So we, obviously we're lucky that we got to work together at Uber for many years, and we got to like test out how it is to work together. But when we did decide to start a company, it was a no-brainer. It had to be the two of us. Co-founders go through so many ups and downs. You have to make sure you guys can get through the ups are always fun, obviously, but you have to make sure you get through the downs together without, going at each other. It's such a learning experience, especially for first-time co-founders. There are so many things you realize you didn't know. And you've got to make sure, both of you are learning together without, attacking one another. So, I've been very lucky, with both my partners, with my wife at home, and then my with Tito at work.
I love that. So I want to ask where are you guys now when it comes to Team Bridge? Like what services, products you have out there, and where are you when it comes to the growth of the company? And then we maybe go back a little bit into stories of how the idea came along and how did you grow the company where it is now?
Yeah. Teambridge right now is 60 employees serving over 200 enterprise customers. And we've expanded the product offering to be really nearly end to end across the employee lifecycle or the staff lifecycle. This means we do everything from recruiting, ATS, credentialing, onboarding, activation, engagement, scheduling, time tracking, and even now with our earned wage access pay product. So employees, staff members can now cash out within seconds after clocking out of a shift. And I think the cool thing about Teambridge is that we've always taken it very much from a new wave, like operating system mentality, where we're not actually building like a product. We're building an operating system that goes out in the real world and does more than just a typical scheduling tool. A typical scheduling tool will turn a shift red, but Teambridge will help you find a replacement. It'll notify your client. It will actually, identify opportunities that happen in between these like small moments that used to be the products of scheduling and time and attendance. So we've been able to scale the business quite successfully now. And it's super exciting to, be on this journey and get to be really close to customers, like solving bigger problems and helping them drive revenue for their organizations and better employee experiences.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, so cool. And can I ask, so you guys were working at Uber, right? And you met there. So where did this idea came from? Which one of you got idea? Did you brainstorm it together? Like you saw this problem that has to be solved that can help? And yeah, and second question, are you focused more on B2B? Is you focused more on companies helping their employees, or you going, B2C? What is the business model you're using?
Yeah, I think Tito touched upon the first part a little bit. Look, we were very lucky, very privileged that we got an opportunity to work at Uber for about 5 years, each of us. And the reason I say we were very lucky and privileged is it was one of the rare companies, when you look at the Bay Area, you have all these massive companies solving for, mostly the desk worker, right? So that's people like us, right? We're behind a desk, we have our computer screens, laptops in front of us. And there's a lot of great technology built for the knowledge worker, right? Even AI today is mostly focused on helping the knowledge worker. At Uber, the reason I say we were privileged is, a lot of people don't realize, one of Uber's most important products is actually the driver software, right? It's the product that is used by the drivers to onboard, to get credentialed, to pick up jobs, which are the trips, to basically communicate with Uber. There is a gamification engine where they perform well, they get, some upward mobility there, and then they finally can cash out and provide food for their families, right? So, at Uber, me and Tito, went on to work on the driver side of the technology. I went on to run the driver experience team. So it's that experience the drivers have. Remember, these drivers are using the Uber app for 4, 5, 6, 8 hours a day, right? So for the first time, again, there was this company in Silicon Valley solving for a demographic that Silicon Valley has usually forgotten, the hourly blue collar worker. Right. So that's where the idea came about, Navina, because while we were building software for them, you got to understand the real pain that these people are feeling day to day. Right. So Tito and me were privileged where we got to go to, all around the world. Honestly, we went to, Portugal and Spain and Australia and China, when Uber was still in China back then, Southeast Asia, India, of course, Brazil, different parts of America. And we understood, the pain that these drivers are facing, that the blue collar workforce is facing, and we were building technology to solve for that. And this is, by the way, Uber's workforce, right? The 4 million drivers who are driving. And then Tino and me were like, hey, let's take a step back. Like, what about all the other hourly workers, all the other blue collar workers? There are so many businesses that have large hourly workforces. How do we provide a technology like Uber did for the drivers? Right. So I think that goes to your second question. Like, we are purely B2B. We've, a little bit going into the B2B2C world, but we sell our software to businesses that have a large hourly workforce. Very popular example, one of our customers is the Levi Stadium here in Santa Clara. They, they have about 4,500 people come in on game day. These are workers, right? The janitors, they are, guest services, parking, security. So the Levi Stadium kind of manages that workforce using the Teambridge app, which is like an Uber-like app, right? Where these folks can come in, they can onboard, they can pick up shifts, they can clock in and out.
Thank you, Arjun, for sharing. So I want to ask you one question that came to my mind is, since you both work in Uber and it's such a huge corporation, right? What is maybe for each one of you, one thing that you really liked in a culture of Uber that you wanted to implement in Teambridge? And what is something that you wanted to do different, right? Because a lot of startups, we want to change a little bit of culture and how things are done with our team. So I would love to hear from each one of you, what is something you wanted to bring, which you thought, oh, it's so great that we had that in the previous company, and what is something that you wanted to do different when it comes to building your team or serving your customers?
Yeah, I think as an entrepreneur, one of the most important things is a bias towards action, of being able to actually ship product faster, to be able to make decisions faster. And oftentimes, both, today and when we were at Uber, the path always isn't clear. And you have to kind of sometimes stop pretending, and understand that you're naive and either go out and become an expert by doing or just making a decision and learning really fast and being, open to iterating. So I think Uber had that mentality, and we do at Teambridge as well, where we have to take more swings at bat than our competitors can do before we take 10 swings at bat before our competitors get out of bed in the morning. And that allows us to learn really fast and do better for our customers, providing more features, more enhancements, more revenue driving, tools that help our customers run the real world business of, managing a large workforce. So I think that's one thing that, I think we like to take away. And then kind of on the flip side, I think you can have a culture that gets management heavy. And I think that's one thing is we like to be doers, and it's a kind of a similar vein, right? It's the flip side. You want to make sure that we are a company that actually puts the people who are doing the work, who are closer to the customers, in the decision-making, chair, rather than folks who are just managing people.
I love that. And especially, sometimes when we go in this corporate ladder and we are in a higher position, we're not in touch with everyday customer. And I feel a lot of CEOs are then, making decisions, but they're not so involved or not listening to what are, hands-on problems that we are facing every day in the customer service and delivering the product or service. So I think that's so great. Anything for you, Arjun, you would like to add?
No, I think, look, Tito was spot on. Me and Tito both took cultural values very seriously. Right from day one when we formed the company. Um, you know, it gets. I'm glad we did that, because once you have about 60 folks, it's your cultural values that make sure everyone's staying aligned to the mission, as well as moving in a similar way. One of the one that Tito pointed out that comes to mind too is the 1% better every day. It's not necessarily an Uber cultural value, but it's something that we take to heart. As Tito pointed out, you got to move fast. We take 10 swings at bats, as Tito mentioned. But while you're moving fast and taking the swings at bat, you need to realize that a lot of them are going to fail, right? And the way to learn is by not waiting for perfection, but instead figuring out along the way through the mistakes that you made and admitting that you made these mistakes, so that you can course correct and find the answer while you go. And I think those kind of things are more important when you are attacking a problem that has mostly been forgotten. So when you're solving for the blue collar workforce, it's very different than solving for the knowledge worker. The kind of products you have to build, the user experience that you have to put in, the pricing models that you have to put in, the customer support that you have to do. Again, it's a non-tech savvy workforce. So, because it's not been done many times in Silicon Valley, you have to keep trying, understanding where you fail and then course correct. So for me, the 1% better every day, is embodies, a lot of how we work.
Thank you so much for both of you for sharing, your point of view and your values, and I think this is so important for sure when you're building your company. And now I would like to ask you, what was when we are switching from working in a corporation and being a co-founder or starting our own business? Of course, it's a big shift. So was there something that was a little bit challenging for you, or you realize, hey, I'm still thinking as an employee, I'm a co-founder? Was there some mindset shift you had to make when you changed the roles and you went full on in Teambridge and left your corporate careers? And what was it like the most powerful moment or a shift for each one of you?
I think the first thing I would, tell anyone who's thinking about being an entrepreneur is like think very long and hard about it because I think what you have to realize is no one is coming to save you, not your investors, not advisors, not even your early customers. And so ultimately that means that you as a co-founder, as a founder, have to kind of reinvent yourself constantly. And right now, like Arjun is leading our go-to-market and we were both product design prior to founding Teambridge. So that is a complete reinvention of like his career. And every time you go through one of these, every time the company reaches a new phase, even if you're staying in the same function, right? A company going from 0 to 1 million, 1 million to 5, 5 to 10, they're actually different roles. So you're reinventing yourself even if you're staying in the same function. And that can be really uncomfortable. Now it's incredibly rewarding, but you don't have to do that at a big company. At a big company, you do the task that's given to you. And if you do it well, you'll probably work your way up. But at a startup, and especially as a co-founder, there's no really way up. There's just the company gets bigger and there's more responsibilities and you have to reinvent yourself for whatever the company needs in that moment. So I think that's like the core lesson is that those moments of learning, those moments of growth are incredibly rewarding. And yes, you're going to get out on the other side and you're going to be really happy you did, but you're going to have to go through. And that's why I think grit is so important to a startup because getting through that is really like the foxhole mud crawl.
Yeah, look, again, Tito's spot on, and I think maybe I can piggyback on what he said. Um, your question was like, how does it change, right? From, being, in a corporate job, you're an employer of a larger company to being a founder. When we were in a corporate job, or at least, speak for myself, you are kind of in one path, right? We were in the product design path. And you understand that space really well over many, many years, sometimes decades, right? So when, you're hiring people, you're working with people, you're already, you know, largely an expert at what you're doing. And I think what Tito's pointing out, which is spot on, is when you become a founder, you realize that you're actually not an expert at so many things that you have to do. In this case, one of us is running the go-to-market org, like because we are product guys, we don't understand enterprise sales as well as we need to, right, in order to be successful. We don't understand enterprise marketing, right? Growth marketing, brand marketing, product marketing. Then there is customer success. There are all these different types of roles in customer success, like, oh, I'm not an implementation manager. I'm actually a CSM, a customer success manager. I'm like, what is that? We didn't even know these things, right? So I think one of the most important things you have to do, which came to light, you were like, what is the aha moment? The aha moment for me is like, when folks say like, hey, hire people smarter than yourselves, right? And I was like, always kind of understood it. But when you become a founder, you actually understand it. Because, our, sales team and, our CRO is like way smarter than I am. And, Tito might be in enterprise sales, right? He's or she might, get that and has done that over decades. And they are the ones who are teaching us, how to run a sales org and how to, sell in the enterprise world. Same with our, head of marketing, same with our customer success. In fact, I would say all our customer success folks are, better than what me and Tito might be at customer success, and same with the rest of the department. So I think the aha moment is like when I realized like, oh yes, we do have to hire people way smarter than us for our company to succeed in areas that, we have deficiencies.
Yes, and thank you so much for sharing. And I think this also can be very hard sometimes for us, for our ego, and to say, hey, I don't know, I'm not expert in this area. I have to let go. I have to bring someone who is better. And I think a mistake that a lot of entrepreneurs, and especially when we're starting, we are wearing so many hats and we're doing everything. Not realizing that actually, if we outsource and really pay someone who's better than us, we can reach the success we're looking for much faster. So it's so great to hear that from your perspective as well. And thank you for sharing. And as we're soon wrapping up, I would love to ask you maybe what is the aha moment for each one of you have been as being entrepreneur that you feel if you knew earlier, you would reach success faster? Was there anything that you, when looking back, you're like, hey, it's actually simpler, or I thought it's complicated, or if we focused on this specifically, it would give us the result faster? Because I think if we hear it from people who experience in a very simple way, it can help a lot of entrepreneurs out there, shorten their way to success they're looking for. So I'm just interested to hear, what was it? Was there any moment, anything that was very powerful for you so far, and you would like to share it with other entrepreneurs?
Yeah, look, I don't know if it was a moment, maybe, I hope you're right. This was one thing I hope I learned a lot sooner. Um, and this is around the go-to-market piece. I think when you're in Silicon Valley, there are new technologies that come out, right? Like, our product, we've not talked about our product a lot, but it is obviously geared towards the hourly workforce, but it's very composable in the sense that, different businesses manage their hourly workforces very differently. And, you can use Teambridge's, modules and Lego blocks and build out, your instance of Teambridge for how you want to manage your workforce. And then, we obviously brought in, AI for the real world, right? So you look at a lot of the AI tools out there, they again for the knowledge workers, like how do you make sure you bring out AI for, the people who are on the ground running the world, right? So that they have more predictable schedule, so that they can, make sure they're putting more food on the table for their families. And I think the mistake that we made was or at least I made, was because you're surrounded here with so much tech jargon, we were using a lot of that tech jargon to communicate our value to, a prospect. So, and that works sometimes. If your buyer is also tech savvy, they get it. Hey, this is a composable tool that's AI native. But if you try to say that to, let's say, a general manager of, a stadium, they might really get scared away with, this tech jargon. So you have to, in fact, let go of that tech jargon. You have to focus on the value that you're bringing them. What are their pain points and how are you solving their problems, irrespective of the tech that you're using, right? So I think that was like one of the things that took me longer than I wish to have learned. Figuring out those industries, their pain points, and doubling down on the value that you're bringing them, as opposed to, the bunch of technology that you're using behind the scenes.
Yeah. To double click on what Arjun is saying, I think no one cares about your product. It's not their job, right? They have enough to worry about, especially when we're talking about managing a massive workforce, sometimes one admin to 1,000 staff. So to ask them to care about a feature is ridiculous. But if you come and understand what they're doing on a day-to-day basis, the things that drive a better employee experience, in turn drive better retention for them, allow them to attract a very supply constrained workforce, then you've got something. So you need to really live and breathe what your customers are living. And you have to realize that, like, your job as like a founder, your job as a startup is not to be right. It's to learn faster than anyone else while staying in the game long enough to let that learning compound. And so speed matters more than elegance, and getting to market, having those customer conversations, that's going to be the thing that wins. Because enough conversations, I used to be an athlete, and it's like watching game tape and film, because eventually you start to just like understand inherently what, your competition is going to do. And in the same way, if you talk to enough customers, you start to live and breathe their world, and doing so allows you to speak their language and go to market, allows you to deliver the thing that actually moves the needle for them in their day to day. And then you've got something, right? Until you have that, you've got nothing. If you've got a feature, you got a product, you've got AI, great. But until it moves the needle in terms of their revenue, in terms of their lives, in terms of how they operate on a day-to-day basis, like, assume you have nothing and keep having those conversations.
Yeah, one last
Thank
thing
you
I'll add,
so
maybe
much.
if you're
Yeah,
okay with it, is
very
I think
powerful.
one last thing I'll add, if you're okay with it, is like the fastest way to do what Tito is saying, and this also is more relevant in the blue collar than anywhere, is like you be there in person, right? Like you show up on game day and see how things are managed, right? You show up at the hospital and you see, what the nurses are going through. So being there in person is the best way to understand the pain, as well as like to show to the customer that you're here. And because a lot of times in this workforce that we're going after, they're new buyers of tech, they've not bought a lot of tech in their life. So they want to, you know, sometimes shake your hand, right? They want to make sure they really trust you before they pay you a ton of money to change, you know, how they're operating. Yeah, so just wanted to kind of point that out. Like being there in person
Yeah.
is a game changer.
Yeah, getting there on the field, like you said, and seeing actually what people need and what people want. And it was like a little bit, it's harsh sometimes because we are sometimes so passionate about our idea and product. And then, you know, saying it that blunt, like nobody cares, like Tito said, because it's the truth. People are busy with their own lives, they're busy with their own problems. And then communicating is like a tech jargon that they don't even understand how this tech, it can improve their work, improve their life, and so on, improve their, you know, customer experience in their area. It's what's there. And I really love the approach where, you know, you get on the field and you experience what they're experienced, because often if you come from a tech and you go speak with nurses, you never experience what a nurse is going through, right? So they don't have any connection. Right? Like how am I making you know, a software or whatever for a nurse when I never even experience what their job is and what are they going through in you know, 8 hours or 6 hour shift. So I love that advice, and I think to all listeners who are tuning in, you know, take this into your own business, into your own industry. I mean, these two guys did an incredible job, and they here sharing all this knowledge and wisdom with all of you. So go and do it as well. Thank you guys so much. I enjoyed really profoundly this conversation, meeting you, and really I appreciate the generosity of sharing your expertise and your knowledge.
Thanks for having
Likewise, this
us.
was, yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Navina.
Okay, make sure to follow Teambridge if this is something, find out more if this is something that your business can use. Make sure to use it or recommend it. And give us some likes, hearts, share this with other entrepreneurs that can benefit from this information as well. And I will see you in the next episode.